December 30th, 1610. Čachtice Castle, Kingdom of Hungary. The soldiers break through the heavy oak door. The smell hits them first. Iron and decay, so thick they can taste it. In the great hall they find her, Countess Elizabeth Báthory, Hungary's wealthiest woman, standing beside a girl's body. The victim's throat has been torn open. Blood pools across the stone floor. But it's what they see next that makes even hardened warriors recoil. A massive black cat sits at the Countess's feet, its muzzle dark and wet. The animal doesn't run. It simply watches them with knowing yellow eyes, as if it has been expecting their arrival. The soldiers move deeper into the castle. What they discover in the rooms below will haunt them until their dying days. Bodies, dozens of them. Young girls tortured, drained, discarded like broken dolls. And in every death chamber, every blood-stained room, they find the same thing: black fur, claw marks. Evidence of the creature that has been her constant companion through years of unspeakable atrocities. But the truth was far more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Before we uncover the truth about the blood, Countess and her black cat, 650 girls sacrificed, Elizabeth Báthory's feline familiar, make sure to subscribe to Fierce Sermon and ring that notification bell. Drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. We love hearing from our community of mystery seekers around the world. The year is 1575. Europe stands at a crossroads between the medieval world and modernity. The Protestant Reformation has torn Christianity apart. The Ottoman Empire presses at Europe's borders. And in the Kingdom of Hungary, caught between these great powers, noble families wield absolute authority over the peasants who work their lands. Into this world of violence and superstition, a young woman prepares for her wedding day. Elizabeth Báthory is 15 years old. She stands in her chambers at Sarvar Castle, watching servants lay out her wedding gown. She is not like other girls her age, educated in 4 languages, Hungarian, Latin, German, and Greek. She can discuss philosophy and politics with the most learned men of her time. Her family is one of the most powerful in Hungary. Her uncle is the King of Poland. Her cousins include cardinals, generals, and palatines. She should be grateful for this arranged marriage to Ferenc Nadezhdy, a military hero known as the Black Knight of Hungary. But Elizabeth's dark eyes reveal nothing of her thoughts as she prepares to leave her childhood behind. What the wedding guests cannot see is the shadow that has already fallen across her soul. At age 4, Elizabeth witnessed her family's peasants being tortured for minor infractions. At 9, she watched a woman accused of witchcraft burned alive in the village square. At 12, she saw her uncle's soldiers impale captured Ottoman prisoners on wooden stakes outside his castle walls. These images have planted seeds in fertile soil. On the day of her wedding, as Elizabeth takes her vows, a black cat appears in the chapel. It slips through the assembled nobles like smoke, making no sound on the stone floor. Some guests notice it watching the ceremony from the shadows. Others will later swear they saw it sitting on the altar itself, its eyes fixed on the young bride. The castle priest makes the sign of the cross. Old women whisper prayers. But Elizabeth sees the creature and something passes between them. A recognition, perhaps, an understanding. The cat vanishes before the ceremony ends. But it will return, and when it does, it will never leave her side again. For the first decade of her marriage, Elizabeth plays the role expected of her. While her husband campaigns against the Ottoman Turks, she manages their estates with ruthless efficiency. She bears 4 children. She maintains the family's honor and position. To the outside world, she is the perfect noblewoman. But the castle servants begin to notice troubling signs. The Countess displays violent outbursts toward her maids. A girl who tangles Elizabeth's hair while brushing it receives a beating so severe she cannot work for days. Another servant, caught stealing a pear from the kitchen, is stripped naked and driven into the snow, where she freezes to death. And always, there is the black cat. It appears at Čachtice Castle, Elizabeth's wedding gift from Ferenc, sometime in 1585. No one remembers it arriving. It simply becomes a fixture of the household, following the Countess everywhere she goes. The creature is unusually large, with a coat so black it seems to absorb light. Its eyes, a piercing amber, watch everything with disturbing intelligence. The peasants call it Siertna, which means the black one. They say it is no ordinary animal. They claim to hear it speaking to the Countess in human voices late at night. They swear they've seen it walk on its hind legs through the castle corridors when it thinks no one is watching. Elizabeth dismisses such talk as peasant superstition, but she never denies her attachment to the creature. She has special meals prepared for it, raw meat, always fresh. She allows it to sleep in her chambers, on her bed, even on her pillow. She speaks to it constantly, consulting it on household decisions as if it were her most trusted advisor. The Countess loves that demon cat more than her own children, one servant writes in a letter to her sister. It is always at her side, watching us with those devil's eyes. I fear what it whispers to her in the darkness. The year 1604 brings a turning point. Ferenc Nadezhdy dies, possibly from poisoning, though officially from a war wound that became infected. At 44 years old, Elizabeth is now one of the wealthiest widows in Europe, with vast estates and hundreds of servants under her absolute control, and she is finally free to indulge the darkness that has been growing inside. The first disappearance occurs in the spring of 1604, just months after Ferenc's death. A peasant girl named Clara arrives at Čachtice Castle to work as a seamstress. She is 12 years old, the youngest of 7 children, sent by her desperate parents to earn money for the family. She is last seen alive entering the castle gates on May 3rd, carrying a small bundle of belongings. She never returns home. When Clara's mother comes to the castle asking after her daughter, the head housekeeper, a woman named Anna Darvulia, tells her that Clara ran away in the night, probably to follow some soldier or merchant. This is not uncommon. Young girls frequently disappear from their positions, seeking better opportunities or romantic adventures, but Clara's mother notices something strange as she's being escorted from the castle grounds. In an upper window, she sees the black cat watching her, and at its feet, clearly visible even from a distance, is a piece of blue fabric, the exact color of the dress Clara was wearing when she left home. When the mother tries to return to investigate, she is turned away by armed guards. When she appeals to the local magistrate, her complaint is dismissed. The Countess is nobility, the missing girl is a peasant. The social distance between them is as vast as the distance between heaven and earth. Over the following year, more girls vanish. 2 in June, 3 in August, 4 in October. Always young girls from poor families, always girls who come to work at the castle and are never seen again. The official explanations vary. They ran away, they died of illness and were buried in unmarked graves. They were sent to work at other Báthory estates in distant regions. Each explanation sounds plausible on its own, but the pattern is beginning to emerge for those brave enough to look. Ilona Joe, one of Elizabeth's most trusted servants, later testifies about what she witnessed during this period. She describes how the Countess's cruelty escalates from beatings to something far worse. I saw her ladyship stick pins into the fingers of her servant girls, Ilona states in her deposition. She would hold each girl's hand steady while the black cat, that devil creature, would watch and seem to purr with pleasure at their screams. The Countess would look at the cat, and sometimes she would laugh, as if it had told her some private joke. Another servant, Katalin Benecki, provides even more disturbing testimony. She describes walking past the Countess's private chambers one night and hearing strange sounds. A girl crying, Elizabeth's voice speaking in an unfamiliar language, and beneath it all, a low rumbling that didn't sound quite like a cat's purr. I looked through the keyhole, Katalin admits during her interrogation. God forgive me, but I had to know what was happening behind that door. What I saw, the girl was bound to a chair. The Countess was cutting her, making careful incisions on her arms and legs. And the black cat, it was licking the blood from the wounds as it flowed. The Countess would cut, the cat would drink, and her ladyship would whisper things to it as if they were conducting some unholy ritual together. By 1606, the disappearances have become impossible to ignore. Village priests report that families are refusing to send their daughters to work at Čachtice Castle, even though such positions traditionally provide essential income for poor households. The peasants speak openly of dark magic and blood sacrifices. They say the Countess is trying to preserve her youth through infernal means. They say the black cat is a demon sent from hell to guide her in these blasphemous acts. But Elizabeth Báthory is too powerful to be challenged by peasant rumors. Her family connections protect her, her wealth buys silence from local officials. And those who speak too loudly against her have a habit of meeting unfortunate accidents, falling from high places, drowning in shallow streams, attacked by wild animals in broad daylight. The situation escalates further when Elizabeth begins recruiting accomplices. Anna Darvulia, her head housekeeper, becomes her primary assistant in what court documents will later describe as acts of torture and murder. Darvulia is joined by Ilona Joe, Dorotea Sentes known as Dorka, and Katarina Benecka, all servants who either participate willingly or feel they have no choice but to obey their mistress. A local witch named Ertzi Majarova also enters Elizabeth's circle during this period. Majarova claims to possess knowledge of dark arts and provides the Countess with various potions and rituals. More significantly, she helps Elizabeth develop a new recruitment strategy. She tells the Countess to stop taking only peasant girls and begin luring daughters of the lower nobility to her castle. If you take only peasants, your power remains limited, Majorova allegedly tells Elizabeth. But if you take girls of gentle birth, you will absorb their noble blood, their refinement, their social graces. This will magnify the effects tenfold. Elizabeth finds this reasoning compelling. She begins hosting educational academies at her castle, inviting families to send their daughters to learn etiquette, languages, and domestic arts under the Countess's personal tutelage. 25 girls from minor noble families arrive at Čachtice Castle in the summer of 1609. By autumn, 6 of them are dead. The parents of these girls cannot be dismissed as easily as peasant families. They demand answers. They appeal to higher authorities. They threaten to create a scandal that even Elizabeth's family connections cannot suppress. And always, in the background of these accounts, appears the black cat. Witnesses place it at the scene of multiple suspicious deaths. A stable hand reports seeing it sitting on the chest of a girl who supposedly died of illness, its eyes glowing in the darkness of the sick room. A cook describes how it would appear in the kitchen whenever the Countess ordered special preparations. Raw meat, always fresh, delivered to her chambers at odd hours. That creature was her true counselor, testifies János Ujvari, who served as castle administrator. I would see her ladyship speaking to it for hours, and then she would give orders that seemed to come from those conversations. She treated it with more respect and affection than she showed her own family. When it entered a room, everyone fell silent, even the Countess herself, as if waiting for it to pass judgment on what we were discussing. The most chilling testimony comes from a girl named Zuzana, one of the few victims who manages to escape Čachtice Castle alive. She is found wandering the road to Vienna in October 1610, her body covered in wounds, her mind shattered by trauma. When she is finally able to speak, she tells a story that seems impossible. She describes being kept in the castle's underground chambers, where she and other girls were systematically tortured. But it is her description of the black cat that causes even hardened interrogators to cross themselves. It would come down into the darkness where we were kept, Zuzana whispers, and it would choose which girl would be taken next. It would walk among us, smelling each girl, looking into her eyes. When it found the one it wanted, it would let out a cry, not a normal cat sound, but something that made your bones hurt to hear it. Then the servants would come and drag that girl away, and we would hear her screaming for hours until finally there was silence. She pauses, tears streaming down her face. The Countess would tell us that the cat could smell our fear, that it fed on our terror as much as on our blood. She said it had chosen her years ago to be its instrument in this world, and that we should be honored to be part of its great work. By December 1610, rumors of Elizabeth's crimes have reached the Hungarian parliament in Bratislava. Her own cousin, Count György Thurzo, the Palatine of Hungary, faces enormous pressure to investigate. But even now, even with mounting evidence, no one truly believes that a countess, one of the most educated and sophisticated women in Hungary, could be capable of the atrocities described in peasant testimonies. Count Thurzo decides he must see the truth for himself. On December 29, 1610, he assembles a group of soldiers and officials. They will ride to Čachtice Castle and conduct a surprise inspection. If the rumors prove false, it will silence the gossip forever. If the rumors prove true, none of them want to consider that possibility. They depart before dawn on December 30th, riding hard through the winter darkness. As they approach the castle, they notice something odd. No smoke rises from the chimneys despite the freezing temperature. No lights show in the windows. The castle appears abandoned, though they know the Countess is in residence. At the gates they find something that makes them all hesitate. Scratched into the wooden door, as if by claws, are symbols, strange markings that none of them can read. The soldiers force the gates open and proceed toward the main entrance. That's when they hear it, a girl's scream, suddenly cut short, coming from somewhere inside. Count Thurzo orders his men to break down the door, and what they discover inside will confirm every dark rumor, every whispered horror, every nightmare testimony. The truth is worse than anyone imagined. If this story is giving you chills, hit that like button and share this with someone who loves dark historical mysteries. What we're about to reveal will change your understanding of evil forever. Let's discover what happens next. The soldiers burst through the entrance and immediately confront a scene from hell. The great hall of Čachtice Castle is splattered with blood, not old dried blood but fresh, still gleaming wet on the stone walls, pooling in the grooves between floor tiles. A young girl lies on the floor, her throat torn open, her eyes staring at nothing. She cannot have been dead more than an hour. Standing over the body is Countess Elizabeth Báthory. She wears a white nightgown, now stained crimson. Her hands are red to the elbows. And sitting calmly at her feet, licking blood from its paws, is the massive black cat. For a moment, no one moves. The soldiers stand frozen, their minds struggling to reconcile what they see with what they know about social hierarchy and noble privilege. The Countess is supposed to be untouchable. What they are witnessing is impossible. Elizabeth breaks the silence. She looks at Count Thurzo with complete composure and says, "Cousin, you arrive unannounced. This is quite improper." Her words snap the men into action. Guards move to restrain her, but Count Thurzo raises his hand. "Secure the castle," he orders. "Search every room, find everyone who resides here, and someone deal with that animal." 3 soldiers approach the black cat with drawn swords. The creature watches them come, showing no fear. When they are within striking distance, it releases a sound that one soldier will later describe as the cry of a human woman being murdered, mixed with something that no earthly throat could produce. The men stumble backward, crossing themselves. The cat walks slowly toward a darkened corridor, looks back once at Elizabeth, then vanishes into the shadows. Despite extensive searches, it will never be found. While some men guard the Countess, others begin exploring the castle. What they discover in the following hours will be documented in official records, preserved in archives, and whispered about for centuries. In a room off the Great Hall, they find 2 girls dying from multiple wounds. One has been drained of so much blood that her skin appears translucent. The other has had her fingers systematically broken, one joint at a time. Both girls are naked, covered in bite marks. Some clearly human, others that appear to have been made by an animal with unusually large fangs. A clerk named Jakub Silvasi accompanies the soldiers, taking notes for the official report. His hand shakes as he writes, "The girls were discovered in a state of extreme torture. Instruments of iron heated in fire were found nearby, along with devices designed to constrict the limbs and crush the fingers. Most disturbing were the numerous vessels containing collected blood, as if this vital fluid was being harvested for some specific purpose. They descend into the castle's lower levels, where the true horror awaits. The underground chambers have been converted into torture rooms. Iron maidens, spiked coffins designed to slowly impale victims, stand against the walls. Cages too small for adults to stand and hang from the ceiling, still containing the bodies of girls who starved to death in them. Tables covered in blood bear the marks of repeated use. And everywhere, covering every surface, is black cat fur. It is as if the creature lived down here," writes Silvasi. "The fur is embedded in the dried blood, mixed into the instruments of torture, even found in the mouths of some deceased victims, as if they had choked on it during their final moments." In one chamber, they discover something that defies immediate explanation. The walls are covered in writing. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of words scratched into the stone. The text appears to be Latin, but mixed with words from no language any of them recognize. One passage, translated by a priest in the investigating party, reads, "The black one shows me the path. Through blood comes knowledge, through pain comes power. The girls are vessels, their suffering opens doors." Between these writings are crude drawings, a large cat surrounded by prostrate human figures, a woman with a cat's head sitting on a throne, a circle of dead girls with a cat in the center consuming something that might be their hearts or their souls. But the most horrifying discovery awaits them in the deepest chamber, behind a door so heavy it takes 4 men to force it open. Inside, they find the bodies. The room is long and narrow, more of a corridor than a chamber. Along both walls, stacked like cordwood, are the corpses of dozens of young girls. Some appear relatively fresh, dead days or weeks. Others are in advanced stages of decay, reduced to bone and leathered skin. A few are nothing but skeletons still wearing the remains of their clothing. Count Thurzo orders his men to begin counting. The process takes hours and requires them to work in shifts, as the smell and horror of the task make even hardened soldiers physically ill. When they finish, the number seems impossible. 54 bodies in various states of decay, but this is only what remains in the castle. As the investigation expands to the grounds surrounding Čachtice, more bodies are discovered. 9 are buried in shallow graves near the castle walls. 12 more are found in a lime pit designed to accelerate decomposition. 3 have been thrown into the moat. 7 are discovered in the forest, scattered among the trees as if they were nothing more than animal remains. Silvasi's notes become increasingly disturbed in tone as the count rises. "I can no longer maintain the clinical detachment required of a court observer. What we have discovered here is not merely murder, but a systematic campaign of torture and killing that must have spanned years. The evidence suggests that as many as 100 or more girls have perished within these walls, their lives snuffed out to satisfy appetites I dare not name. In Elizabeth's private chambers, investigators find her diary, a leather-bound book kept hidden behind a loose stone in her fireplace. The entries span 5 years and provide a chilling glimpse into her deteriorating mind. Early entries discuss beauty routines and household management. But by 1606, the content shifts. She writes about her fear of aging, her desperate desire to maintain her appearance. She mentions the black cat for the first time. The dark one came to me last night and showed me truths I've long suspected. Youth is not lost through time but stolen by those younger than ourselves. There are ways to reclaim what is rightfully mine. Later entries become more explicit. She describes her first killing, how exciting and empowering it felt. She discusses different methods of torture, rating them by the intensity of the victim's suffering. She records the number of girls killed, keeping a running tally that reaches 650 by her final entry. But it is her references to the cat that most disturb the investigators. She writes about it constantly, describing it as her teacher, her guide, her partner in the great work. She claims it speaks to her in dreams, showing her visions of power and immortality. She insists that the blood rituals they perform together will eventually grant her eternal youth and beauty. One entry, dated September 1609, reads, "The black one assures me we are close to perfection. The ritual requires noble blood, which is more potent than peasant stock. Erzi has helped me acquire suitable subjects. Tonight we take the next step. I feel I am being transformed, remade into something greater than mere human. The cat watches over me always, protecting me, guiding me toward my destiny." Among her belongings, they also find a collection of cat-related items that seem significant. A collar made from human hair, a silver dish engraved with symbols matching those found in the torture chamber, a brush containing both human and animal blood, and most disturbing, a small leather pouch containing what appears to be dried human fingers, each with a claw-like nail attached. As Count Thurzo pieces together the evidence, a picture emerges of a woman who believed she had entered into a partnership with something demonic. Whether the cat was truly supernatural or Elizabeth simply went mad and projected her own evil onto an innocent animal is a question that the investigators will debate for years to come. But they all agree on one fact: with or without the cat's supernatural influence, Elizabeth Báthory has committed atrocities that rank among the worst in human history. The servants are arrested immediately. Elizabeth herself is placed under house arrest in her chambers. As soldiers guard her door through the night of December 30th, several report hearing sounds from inside. A woman's voice speaking in strange languages, and beneath it, the unmistakable sound of a cat purring. When they open the door the next morning, Elizabeth is alone. There is no cat, though the room smells of blood and fur. The Countess sits calmly in her chair, looking out the window at the winter landscape, showing no remorse for what she has done. "Where is the creature?" Count Thurzo demands. "Where is the black cat?" Elizabeth smiles, a cold, terrible expression that makes the men take an involuntary step backward. "It has gone to prepare the way," she says. "You think you have stopped me, cousin, but you have only freed me from this mortal prison. The Black One showed me truths you cannot comprehend. We are eternal now, you will see." The investigation into Elizabeth Báthory's crimes becomes one of the most complex legal proceedings in the history of the Kingdom of Hungary. The evidence is overwhelming. The testimony is consistent. The physical proof is undeniable. And yet, the social implications of prosecuting one of Europe's most powerful noblewomen create political nightmares that reach the highest levels of Hungarian society. Count György Thurzo faces an impossible situation. As Palatine of Hungary, he has a duty to seek justice for the victims. But as Elizabeth's cousin and political ally, he also has a vested interest in protecting the Báthory family name. The King of Hungary owes Elizabeth's family enormous debts, money that would become due immediately upon her execution, and the Ottoman Empire, always watching for signs of weakness, would exploit any scandal that destabilizes Hungarian nobility. Thurzo makes a calculated decision. The servants will be prosecuted, but Elizabeth herself will never face public trial. The investigation officially begins on January 2, 1611. Over the following weeks, investigators interview more than 300 witnesses, castle servants, villagers, family members of victims and survivors, who managed to escape Čachtice Castle alive. The testimony is horrifying in its consistency. Witness after witness describes the same pattern of abuse. Girls lured to the castle with promises of work or education, then subjected to escalating torture and eventual murder. Multiple servants testify that Elizabeth kept detailed records of her killings, that she viewed them as a scientific pursuit rather than random acts of violence. But it is the testimony regarding the black cat that creates the most controversy. The investigators are educated men, steeped in Renaissance humanism and increasingly skeptical of medieval superstition. Yet they cannot ignore the sheer volume of consistent reports about this creature. Fichko, a deformed servant boy who helped dispose of bodies, provides the most detailed account. During his interrogation on January 7, 1611, he testifies, "The Countess loved that devil creature more than anything in this world. She would speak to it by the hour, and it would respond. I swear this on my soul. It would respond in ways that no natural animal could. Sometimes it seemed to nod or shake its head as if answering questions. Other times I heard sounds coming from it that resembled human speech, though distorted, as if a person were trying to speak while drowning." He continues, his voice shaking, "When the girls were brought down to the torture chambers, the cat would always come with us. I believe it was never truly a cat at all, but rather a demon that took that form to avoid suspicion. Now that its work is done, it has returned to hell, or perhaps it has gone to find another willing servant to corrupt." The other servants provide similar testimony. Ilona Joe describes how Elizabeth would consult the cat before major decisions. She would ask it questions about which girls to take, what methods to use, when to act and when to wait, and somehow, God forgive me, the cat seemed to answer. Not in words we could hear, but the Countess understood. She always claimed afterward that the Black One had given her permission or guidance. Dorothea Sentis, known as Dorka, goes further. She claims that Elizabeth performed rituals with the cat that went beyond simple torture. She would collect the girls' blood in silver vessels and perform ceremonies by candlelight. The cat would drink from these vessels alongside her ladyship, and she would recite words in a language I did not recognize. She told me once that the Black One was teaching her the old ways, the methods used by priestesses in ancient times before Christianity corrupted the world with weakness and mercy. The official court records struggle with how to address these supernatural claims. The scribes note the testimony but often add marginal notes expressing skepticism. The witness insists on the diabolical nature of the animal, though this may be the product of a disturbed mind, attempting to shift blame from human to supernatural sources. The trial of the servants begins on January 7, 1611, in Bratislava. The proceedings are public, allowing citizens to witness justice being served, or at least the appearance of justice. Ilona Joe, Dorothea Sentis, and a manservant named János Ujvari are accused of being Elizabeth's primary accomplices. The evidence against them is substantial. Multiple witnesses place them at the scenes of torture and murder. The testimony establishes that they not only followed the Countess's orders, but often suggested new methods of inflicting pain. Their defense is simple: they were servants following orders from their noble mistress. To refuse would have meant their own deaths. The law recognizes this dilemma but offers no mercy. The social order depends on accountability, even for those who had no real choice. The sentence is delivered on January 24, 1611. All three are found guilty of murder and conspiracy. Ilona Joe and Dorothea Sentis are sentenced to have their fingers, which participated in the torture, torn out with red-hot pincers before being burned alive. János Ujvari, judged slightly less culpable, is sentenced to beheading before his body is burned. The executions are carried out publicly in Bratislava on January 25th. Contemporary accounts describe how Dorka maintained her composure until the moment the executioner approached with the hot pincers. Then she began screaming, not from pain, though that came soon enough, but from something else entirely. "The Black One," she shrieks. "It's here, it's watching, can't you see it?" The assembled crowd looks around nervously but sees nothing. She showed no remorse for her victims, viewing them instead as necessary sacrifices in her evolution toward a higher state of being. Father Andras also notes something that troubles him deeply. "There are times when I hear sounds from within that chamber that cannot be produced by a single human being. I hear what sounds like a conversation between two entities, though only one is human. The other, God help me, the other voice is something else entirely. It speaks in a language that predates Christian prayer, that makes my bones ache to hear it. I fear that in sealing the Countess in those rooms we have not imprisoned her, but rather created a sanctuary where she can commune undisturbed with forces we do not understand."
On August 21, 1614,
the guard on duty outside Elizabeth's chamber notices that no sounds have emerged from within for more than 24 hours. When he calls through the food slot, there is no response. Count Thurzo, still serving as administrator of Elizabeth's affairs, orders the chamber opened. Workers carefully remove the bricks from the food slot, enlarging it enough for a person to enter. When they peer inside, they see Elizabeth Báthory lying on her bed, dead. She appears to have died peacefully in her sleep, with no signs of struggle or distress. But there is something else in the room that makes the workers retreat in fear. Covering the Countess's body, draped across her like a mourner, is a massive black cat. It sits up as the light enters the chamber, fixes the workers with its yellow eyes, then leaps from the bed and disappears into the darkest corner of the room. When the men finally summon the courage to enter and retrieve Elizabeth's body, they search extensively for the cat. They find nothing. No animal, no hiding place it could have used to escape, no evidence it was ever there except for the fur covering the Countess's corpse. The official death record, written by the attending physician, notes, "The Countess Elizabeth Báthory was found deceased in her chamber on the evening of August 21, 1614. Cause of death appears to be natural, possibly heart failure or stroke. Of note, the body was covered in an unusual amount of black animal fur, source unknown. Elizabeth is buried on August 25, 1614, not in the family crypt, as would be traditional for someone of her rank, but in an unmarked location. The exact burial site is kept secret to prevent her grave from becoming a pilgrimage site for those interested in dark magic or the occult. Even today, more than 400 years later, the precise location of her remains is unknown, but strange reports emerge almost immediately after her burial. Villagers near Čachtice Castle claim to see a large black cat prowling the grounds at night. It appears in the places where Elizabeth killed her victims, as if visiting each site in turn. Some witnesses swear